Jack Taylor, a meticulous lawyer in his late 30s, sat alone in his dimly lit office, the weight of his crumbling marriage pressing down on him. A thick folder of case notes lay unopened on his desk, his mind far away from the legal jargon he usually relished. He found himself lost in memories of happier times, when laughter filled their home and love seemed unshakable. He could still hear Olivia's cheerful voice, her laughter ringing through the halls, vibrant and full of life. Those moments felt like a distant dream now. As he reminisced, Jack couldn't help but notice the shift in Olivia's demeanor over the past few years. The spark that once illuminated her eyes had dimmed, replaced by a flicker of disinterest. The warmth in her touch felt cold, and the late nights at the office turned into unaccounted hours away from home. It was as if a veil had descended, masking the truth he dreaded to acknowledge. Olivia was hiding something from him. With every passing day, Jack's unease grew. He recalled instances when she seemed overly concerned about her appearance or when her phone would buzz with messages she hastily tucked away. The long hours at the gym, the sudden weekend trips, and the whispers of laughter shared in the privacy of another's company gnawed at him like a relentless tide. He wanted to confront her, but the thought of facing the reality of her betrayal left him paralyzed with fear and doubt. The image of Ryan, a charming colleague with an easy smile and an undeniable allure, crept into Jack's mind more often than he liked. He had seen the way Olivia looked at him, the spark in her eyes that had once been reserved for him. It was in the way she leaned in a little too close during conversations, how she laughed a little too loudly at his jokes, and the casual way she mentioned spending time with him at the office. Each mention was like a dagger, driving deeper into Jack's heart, reinforcing his worst fears. As the days turned into weeks, Jack's heartbreak transformed into resolve. He no longer wanted to be the victim in this tale of betrayal. Instead, he envisioned a way to reclaim his life, to confront the reality of his crumbling marriage and take control of his narrative. The thought of orchestrating his escape from the emotional turmoil became an obsession. He was done being blindsided, it was time to turn the tables. With meticulous precision, Jack began planning his next steps. He spent late nights drafting a divorce letter, pouring his heart into each word. He ensured that every sentence conveyed not just his pain, but the consequences of Olivia's choices. This was not merely a legal document, it was a declaration of independence, a manifesto of his strength. He envisioned the moment Olivia would receive it, the shock that would ripple through her as she realized the depths of his resolve. Jack's mind raced with anticipation as he made arrangements for the letter's delivery. He chose the perfect setting, a lunch date between Olivia and Ryan, a casual affair that would quickly spiral into chaos. It was a bold move, but he felt invigorated by the thrill of taking control. The thought of orchestrating this moment, of watching Olivia's world unravel while he remained untouched, filled him with a sense of empowerment. On the day of the delivery, Jack arrived at the restaurant early, his heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. He watched from a distance as Olivia and Ryan laughed together, their carefree banter echoing through the bustling eatery. It was a stark contrast to the suffocating silence of their home, a reminder of everything he had lost. As the waiter approached with the envelope, Jack's heart raced. This was it, the moment he had meticulously crafted. He instructed the waiter to place the letter on their table, ensuring it would disrupt their pleasant afternoon. He could hardly contain his excitement as he envisioned Olivia's reaction upon reading his carefully chosen words. Each laugh, each playful glance between them would soon be overshadowed by the weight of the letter. Jack's pulse quickened as Olivia reached for the envelope. He leaned back in his chair, feeling a surge of relief wash over him. The moment she opened it, he would know his life was about to change irrevocably. The laughter that had once filled their home would soon be replaced by confusion and despair, and he would finally regain the control he had lost. As Olivia unfolded the letter, her laughter faded. Jack could see her expression shift, her brow furrowing in disbelief as the words sank in. He relished the moment from afar, the rush of emotions swirling within him. This was the chaos he had envisioned, the emotional upheaval he had carefully crafted. He had prepared for this, he had ensured that Olivia could not manipulate the situation or him any longer. He watched as she read the letter multiple times, her shock and despair evident in every crease of her brow and trembling of her hands. Jack reflected on his emotional journey, the heartbreak that had transformed into determination, the resolve to reclaim his dignity and control over his life. No longer would he be the man left behind, drowning in the sorrow of betrayal. He was ready to face whatever came next, prepared to confront Olivia and demand the respect he deserved. The stage was set for their confrontation, and Jack was ready to reclaim his narrative. Jack's heart raced as he sat at his table, eyes fixed on the door of the restaurant. The atmosphere buzzed with chatter and laughter, but he felt isolated in his own world. It was lunchtime, a seemingly innocent midday affair, yet for Jack, it was a pivotal moment in his life. He had orchestrated this day meticulously, each detail carefully crafted to bring him to this point of no return. As he glanced at the watch on his wrist, Jack's mind replayed the plan he had put into action. Olivia and Ryan were oblivious to the storm brewing just outside their little bubble. Jack had ensured their lunch would be interrupted in the most dramatic way possible. He could already picture the scene, Olivia, laughing at something Ryan said, blissfully unaware of the chaos that awaited her. When he finally spotted them entering the restaurant, a thrill surged through him. Olivia looked radiant, her hair catching the light as she moved. Jack remembered the days when she would greet him with that same light in her eyes. Now, it felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the betrayal that had seeped into their lives. He steeled himself, pushing down the pain, focusing instead on the liberation he would soon feel. Jack's gaze sharpened as the couple approached a table near the window. They settled in, and he felt a strange mixture of anger and satisfaction. Ryan leaned in closer to Olivia, whispering something that made her laugh, and for a moment, it felt as if Jack were watching a scene from a play, a performance that he was about to upend. The waiter approached him, a young man with a friendly smile. Jack had rehearsed this moment in his mind countless times. He discreetly signaled for the waiter to come closer. "I need you to do something for me," he said, his voice low but steady. The waiter nodded, curious. Jack handed him the envelope containing the divorce letter, the culmination of his planning. "When you serve their drinks, place this on their table. Just make sure they see it." The waiter hesitated for a moment, then took the envelope, understanding the gravity of the situation. Jack watched him walk away, his heart pounding as the waiter approached Olivia and Ryan's table. Jack's breath hitched, and he felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for, the moment that would change everything. As the waiter placed the envelope on the table, Jack's anticipation reached its peak. He leaned forward, straining to hear their conversation, but it faded into the background noise of the restaurant. He was only concerned with Olivia's reaction. He could see her smile falter as she noticed the envelope, confusion flickering across her face. Ryan glanced at it too, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. Jack remained in the shadows, a silent observer as the scene unfolded before him. Olivia picked up the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly. It was a surreal experience, watching her open the letter that held the truth about their marriage. He could almost feel her heart rate quickening as she read the words he had penned with such care. Time seemed to slow as he imagined the emotions that would wash over her. The laughter that had filled their lunch would soon turn to silence. Jack felt a sense of power swell within him. He had taken control of his narrative. He was no longer the man blindsided by infidelity but a man reclaiming his life. Olivia read the letter, her eyes scanning the words repeatedly as disbelief etched deeper into her features. Jack watched as her laughter with Ryan faded into an uncomfortable silence. He could almost hear her internal struggle as she processed the shocking reality laid before her. She looked up at Ryan, her expression a mixture of confusion and dread, as if she were seeking answers he could not provide. From a distance, Jack felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. He had imagined this moment countless times, but witnessing it unfold was an entirely different experience. There was no turning back now, the chaos he had predicted was beginning to emerge. Jack could see Ryan leaning closer, concern written all over his face as he whispered something to Olivia. Jack could only imagine what he was saying, perhaps trying to reassure her or make sense of the situation. Olivia's face paled, the color draining from her cheeks as the weight of Jack's words settled in. He could see her processing the enormity of what the letter meant, not just for her, but for everything they had built together. Memories of their shared life flashed through her mind, juxtaposed against the reality of her choices. Jack's heart ached, but he reminded himself of the purpose behind this act. He had been stripped of his dignity for too long, and now it was time to reclaim it. As Olivia set the letter down, her hands shook, and Jack's breath caught in his throat. This was the moment of truth. She had crossed a threshold, and there was no turning back. Jack's pulse quickened as he prepared for the inevitable fallout. He imagined the scene shifting from the laughter of a casual lunch to a confrontation filled with raw emotions and shattered trust. Ryan reached for Olivia's hand, a gesture meant to comfort her, but Jack could see that it only deepened her distress. She pulled away, her gaze fixated on the letter as if it were a mirror reflecting her guilt. Jack felt a sense of satisfaction at the thought of the chaos he had orchestrated, but a small voice in the back of his mind reminded him of the heartache that lay ahead. Jack took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. He was prepared for the confrontation, knowing he had meticulously planned every detail. The next chapter of his life was about to unfold, and he would no longer be the silent victim. He had initiated this chain of events, and now he was ready to see it through to its conclusion. The waiter returned to check on Olivia and Ryan, but Jack hardly noticed. His focus remained locked on the unfolding drama. He felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration as he imagined the emotions swirling around the table. The laughter that had once filled their lives was about to be replaced by anger, regret, and, ultimately, a reckoning. As Olivia looked back down at the letter, Jack could see the realization wash over her. This was the inciting incident that would set off a series of events that would change their lives forever. The road ahead would be filled with challenges and confrontation, but for Jack, it was a necessary path toward reclaiming his dignity and forging a new identity free from the chains of betrayal. As Olivia unfolded the letter, the atmosphere around the table shifted dramatically. The laughter and lightheartedness that had defined her lunch with Ryan evaporated, leaving behind a thick, suffocating silence. Jack watched intently, feeling a surge of adrenaline as he witnessed the moment unfold. Olivia's eyes darted across the page, her initial confusion quickly morphing into shock. The words he had carefully chosen sank in, and Jack could see the color draining from her face. He leaned back in his chair, feeling a sense of empowerment wash over him. This was the culmination of his planning, the moment he had longed for as he endured the pain of betrayal. Each reaction from Olivia was a testament to his resolve, a vindication of the choices he had made. "Olivia, what's wrong?" Ryan asked, his tone shifting from jovial to concerned. He leaned closer, trying to read the distress on her face. Jack felt a small thrill at the sight of Ryan's unease, knowing he was witnessing the unraveling of their connection. This was not just a letter, it was the beginning of Olivia's reckoning, and Jack was ready to watch it all unfold. Olivia's grip tightened around the letter, and Jack could see the trembling of her fingers. She read the letter multiple times, each pass seemingly deepening her despair. He had anticipated her shock, but seeing it manifest was a different experience altogether. There was a moment when she looked up from the letter, her eyes meeting Ryan's, a flicker of panic crossing her face. Jack could only imagine the thoughts racing through her mind as she processed the implications of his words. "What is this, Olivia?" Ryan pressed, concern etched into his features. Jack watched as Olivia's mind raced, her expression morphing into one of guilt and regret. It was a silent acknowledgement of the reality she had tried to ignore for so long. The weight of her actions hung heavy in the air, and Jack relished the moment, knowing that she could no longer deny the truth he had laid bare. I don't know," Olivia stammered, her voice shaky. She glanced back down at the letter, and Jack could see her emotions churning. The laughter they had shared just moments before felt like a lifetime ago. The room buzzed with the noise of other patrons, but to Jack, it was as if he had entered a world of his own, completely detached from everything else. The chaos he had envisioned was unfolding, and he felt a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. Jack remembered the heartache that had driven him to this point. the nights spent lying awake, plagued by thoughts of betrayal, and the feelings of inadequacy that had gnawed at his spirit. Now, he was witnessing the consequences of Olivia's choices, and it filled him with a sense of power he had long thought lost. Olivia's eyes darted back to Ryan, and Jack noticed the way she hesitated, searching for the right words to explain the unexplainable. "Jack and she started, but her voice faltered, unable to finish the sentence. Jack felt a wave of satisfaction at the realization that Olivia was struggling to articulate her betrayal, a reflection of the chaos inside her. Ryan's expression darkened as he processed her silence, the implications of her words weighing heavily upon him. Jack could see the shift in Ryan's demeanor as the reality of the situation dawned on him. The initial shock had turned to anger, and Jack silently cheered at the sight of his former rival grappling with the unfolding disaster. If you find it interesting, please like it. If not, please comment number 1. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. Is this some kind of joke? Ryan demanded, his voice low and filled with disbelief. Jack felt a rush of adrenaline at the confrontation, knowing that this was just the beginning of the fallout. He had engineered this moment, ensuring that Olivia could not manipulate the narrative to her advantage. Olivia shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. "No, it's not a joke. I didn't mean for this to happen." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the anguish in her tone was palpable. Jack's heart raced as he took in the scene, knowing that this was a pivotal moment in their lives. "Then what the hell is this?" Ryan shouted, his frustration spilling over. Jack felt a thrill at the chaos he had orchestrated. Olivia's world was collapsing around her, and he was determined to watch it unfold. He had spent too long as a victim, and now he would take his place as the master of his fate. "I made mistakes," Olivia confessed, her voice cracking under the weight of her admission. Jack could see the tears streaming down her cheeks, the depth of her despair laid bare before both him and Ryan. It was a sight he had longed for, a glimpse of the vulnerability that had eluded him for so long. "What do you expect me to say? That I forgive you?" Ryan shot back, his tone sharp with betrayal. Jack could sense the intensity of the moment, the raw emotions colliding as Olivia struggled to maintain her composure. The tension in the air was electric, and Jack could hardly contain his anticipation. "I don't know," Olivia replied, her voice barely audible. I never wanted to hurt you." She seemed to be searching for some way to explain her actions, but Jack knew there was no justification for the pain she had caused. Each word felt like a hollow attempt at redemption, and he felt a wave of satisfaction at her helplessness. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he prepared for the inevitable confrontation that awaited him. He had witnessed the chaos unfold between Olivia and Ryan, but now it was time for him to step into the spotlight. He had waited long enough, and the time had come to confront the woman who had shattered his world. As Olivia continued to sob, Jack rose from his chair, his footsteps steady and purposeful. The emotions swirling around him felt overwhelming, but he pushed them aside, focusing on the moment that lay ahead. He was ready to reclaim his dignity, to stand firm in the face of the destruction Olivia had wrought. The confrontation would be a reckoning, and Jack was prepared to face the fallout. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. As he approached their table, he felt a mixture of sadness and liberation wash over him. This was his moment to confront the woman who had hurt him and to take back control of his life. "Olivia," he said, his voice firm yet calm, drawing her gaze away from Ryan. The tears in her eyes mirrored the regret etched across her face. Jack felt a sense of resolve settle within him as he prepared to speak the words that would change everything. The rising action had built to this moment, and now it was time to confront the truth. Jack stepped forward, his heart pounding as he locked eyes with Olivia. The air around them was thick with tension, and he could feel the weight of their shared history pressing down on him. This was the moment he had prepared for, the confrontation that would reveal the extent of her betrayal and his resolve. "Olivia," he said, his voice steady yet laced with emotion. She turned her gaze to him, surprise mingling with fear. Jack could see her struggle to compose herself, her breath shallow as she wiped the tears from her cheeks. The moment felt electric, charged with the culmination of their past. What are you doing here? Olivia's voice trembled, a mixture of defiance and vulnerability. Jack could see the confusion in her eyes, a desperate attempt to regain control of the situation. But he was not going to allow her to manipulate this moment any longer. I came to talk about the letter, Jack replied, his tone unwavering. I think it's time we face the truth. He could feel Ryan's presence beside her, the man who had unwittingly become a pawn in their twisted game. Jack sensed the tension radiating between them as he continued, you need to understand what this all means. Ryan's expression darkened, his frustration palpable. Is this really necessary? Can't we just talk about this calmly? He interjected, trying to defuse the situation. Jack could feel the urge to dismiss Ryan, but he knew the importance of confronting both of them. This was not just about Olivia, it was about reclaiming his dignity and closing the chapter on a painful past. Jack focused on Olivia, ignoring Ryan's interjection. You've been lying to me for so long. You thought I wouldn't find out? I had to watch you betray everything we built together. His voice rose, filled with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. You thought I wouldn't care, that I wouldn't take action. But you're wrong. Olivia opened her mouth to respond, but Jack pressed on, not giving her the chance to interrupt. You made your choices, Olivia. And now, I've made mine. I won't let you manipulate me any longer. The words poured out, and he could feel the catharsis in each syllable, the release of all the pent-up pain he had held onto for so long. Jack, please, Olivia pleaded, her voice cracking. I didn't want it to end like this. I never meant to hurt you. She reached out as if to touch him, but Jack stepped back, creating distance between them. He could see the desperation in her eyes, but he was resolute in his decision. Didn't mean to hurt me? You've been having an affair. Jack shot back, the raw emotion spilling over. You betrayed me in the worst way possible, and now you're acting as if this is some kind of misunderstanding? You've shattered everything we had. Jack's voice echoed through the restaurant, drawing the attention of nearby diners. He felt the eyes of strangers upon him, but in that moment, he didn't care. This was his truth, his moment of liberation, and he would not be silenced. Olivia's expression shifted from pleading to one of anger. You think you're the only one who's hurting? You don't know what I've been going through. She stood, her chair scraping against the floor as she took a step closer. I felt trapped. I needed someone to be there for me, to listen to me. Jack shook his head, incredulous. So you thought running to Ryan was the solution? You sought comfort in someone else's arms while destroying our marriage? The hurt in his voice was palpable, and he could see the impact of his words. You made a choice, Olivia, and now you have to live with the consequences. I know I made mistakes, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. But can't we fix this? I can change. There was a glimmer of desperation in her eyes, but Jack felt a wave of anger surge within him. Change? After everything? You don't get to decide that now, he snapped, his resolve solidifying. This isn't about you anymore. It's about me reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my peace. You have no idea what it's been like for me to feel so powerless. Jack turned to Ryan, who had been silent, watching the exchange unfold. And you, he said, his voice steady. You need to understand that this isn't just a game. You may have thought you were stepping into a relationship, but you were just a pawn in her deception. Ryan looked taken aback, his eyes narrowing as he processed Jack's words. I didn't know, he replied defensively. I thought she was unhappy. I thought I was helping her. That's the problem, Jack shot back. You let yourself be used without realizing the damage being done. You both played with fire, and now you're burned. The confrontation reached a fever pitch as Olivia's emotions spiraled. Jack, please. We can figure this out. I never wanted to hurt you like this. Tears streamed down her face, and Jack felt a pang of sorrow, but he quickly brushed it aside. He had to remain strong. No more empty promises, Olivia. You've hurt me too deeply. Jack's voice was resolute as he leaned in closer, the truth finally surfacing. I've spent too long feeling small, feeling like I didn't matter. But I do matter, and I refuse to let you or anyone else take that from me any longer." As Olivia's sobs filled the air, Jack took a step back, the weight of the moment settling in. He had faced his fears, confronted the woman who had broken him, and now he stood tall, ready to embrace the freedom that lay ahead. The chaos around them was a mere backdrop to his personal triumph. "I'm done, Olivia. I'm moving on with my life," Jack declared firmly. The decision was liberating, and he felt the burden of his pain begin to lift. As he turned to leave, he caught a glimpse of Olivia's face, a mixture of despair and realization. She had lost everything, and Jack knew that this moment would forever change them both. With one last look at the scene before him, Jack walked away from the table, leaving behind the remnants of a shattered marriage. The journey had been painful, but he emerged stronger, ready to forge a new path. The climax of their story had unfolded, and now it was time for him to embrace the freedom he had longed for. Jack walked away from the table, his heart racing as he left the chaos behind him. The weight of the confrontation still hung in the air, but he felt an overwhelming sense of liberation. He had confronted Olivia, exposed the truth, and now he was free from the emotional shackles that had bound him for so long. As he stepped outside the restaurant, the cool breeze hit his face, invigorating him. It was a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere he had just left. The vibrant sounds of the city surrounded him, but Jack felt strangely detached, as if he were viewing the world through a different lens. He had taken a monumental step, and though the adrenaline coursed through him, he knew the reality of what had transpired would settle in soon. There was a bittersweet taste to his victory. He had fought for his dignity, but the battle had left scars that would take time to heal. In the following days, Jack found himself reflecting on the confrontation and its aftermath. Olivia's face, filled with tears and disbelief, haunted him. He replayed the scene over and over in his mind, grappling with the mix of emotions it stirred within him. While he felt empowered, there was also an ache in his heart for what they had once shared. Despite the hurt, Jack knew he had made the right choice. He had reclaimed his narrative, but the void left by Olivia's betrayal was hard to ignore. He busied himself with work, throwing himself into cases that had been neglected during his turmoil. The more he immersed himself in his profession, the more he felt a sense of normalcy return. As the days turned into weeks, Jack began to notice changes in his demeanor. He found himself smiling more, laughing at jokes, and enjoying life's simple pleasures again. It was as if a heavy fog had lifted, and the colors of the world had returned to vibrancy. Yet, every time he thought of Olivia, a pang of sorrow would slice through the joy he had started to embrace. Olivia, for her part, was left to grapple with the fallout of her choices. After the confrontation, she felt hollow, her emotions swinging between anger and regret. The reality of Jack's decision hit her like a tidal wave, and she found herself alone in the empty apartment they had shared. The walls echoed with memories, but the warmth that once filled the space was gone, replaced by a suffocating silence. She replayed their last conversation in her mind, her heart aching with the weight of Jack's words. How had it come to this? The life they had built together felt like a distant dream, now overshadowed by her betrayal. Olivia struggled to understand how she could have let things spiral so far out of control. Each day was a battle against the loneliness that enveloped her, and she often found herself staring out the window, wishing for a chance to turn back time. Ryan had tried to reach out after the confrontation, but Olivia pushed him away. She could not bear to face him, knowing that he had been unwittingly caught in her web of deceit. Their interactions felt strained, each conversation a reminder of her failures. She needed time to reflect on her choices and the path that had led her to this point. The man who had once seemed like a lifeline now felt like a burden, a constant reminder of her mistakes. As Jack continued to rebuild his life, he found himself surrounded by supportive friends and family. They rallied around him, encouraging him to move forward and embrace new opportunities. Jack took their advice to heart and started to explore activities he had neglected during his marriage, hiking, cooking classes, and even reconnecting with old friends. Each new experience was a reminder that life was still full of possibilities. However, there were moments when Jack would catch himself thinking about Olivia. He wondered how she was coping, if she was feeling the weight of their broken relationship as he was. There was a flicker of concern for her well-being, but he quickly extinguished it, reminding himself of the pain she had caused. He had to prioritize his healing, to focus on rebuilding his life without the shadows of the past looming over him. The transition was not without its challenges. Jack faced moments of doubt, memories of their happier times surfacing unexpectedly. He would find himself in places they had visited together, and the nostalgia would wash over him, threatening to pull him back into the depths of despair. But with each passing day, he learned to navigate those emotions, allowing himself to grieve the loss while also celebrating his newfound freedom. Jack's friends encouraged him to consider dating again, but he was hesitant. The thought of opening his heart after the devastation of his marriage felt daunting. Yet, he recognized that he couldn't remain in this state of limbo forever. He began to venture into the world of dating cautiously, taking small steps to rediscover the possibility of love. One evening, while attending a gathering with friends, he met someone who intrigued him, a fellow lawyer named Sarah. They struck up a conversation that flowed effortlessly, filled with laughter and shared interests. Jack felt a spark of something he hadn't experienced in a long time, a glimmer of hope that perhaps love could bloom again. As he and Sarah exchanged numbers, Jack realized that he was ready to take this leap of faith. It was not a dismissal of his past, but rather an acknowledgement that life continued, even after heartbreak. He would carry the lessons learned from his marriage into this new chapter, using them as a foundation for healthier connections. Back in her apartment, Olivia was slowly coming to terms with the reality of her situation. The silence that had once suffocated her began to feel like a space for reflection rather than punishment. She sought therapy, determined to understand her choices and the underlying issues that had driven her to seek solace outside her marriage. Through her sessions, Olivia started to confront the pain she had inflicted on Jack and herself. It was a difficult journey, one filled with tears and revelations, but she knew it was necessary for her growth. She had to take responsibility for her actions, to learn from her mistakes, and to find a way to rebuild her life from the ashes of their relationship. As the weeks turned into months, both Jack and Olivia began their separate journeys toward healing. Jack embraced the possibilities of a new life, while Olivia sought to understand herself better and work through her emotions. Though their paths had diverged, the impact of their shared history lingered, reminding them both that love could be both a blessing and a lesson. The falling action of their lives intertwined in unexpected ways, shaping their futures as they sought to find solace and meaning in the aftermath of their choices. They were on divergent paths, but both were committed to learning from the past and forging ahead, ready to face whatever lay ahead. In the months that followed, Jack and Olivia continued on their separate journeys of healing and self-discovery. Each had faced the aftermath of their decisions, but the paths they walked were leading them toward new horizons, shaped by their past yet focused on the future. For Jack, the transition into his new life had been both liberating and challenging. As he delved deeper into his work and explored new interests, he found himself surrounded by a supportive circle of friends who encouraged him to embrace his independence. He threw himself into his cases with renewed passion, discovering a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in years. The small victories in the courtroom began to translate into a greater sense of purpose, fueling his desire to excel in his career. His connection with Sarah blossomed, slowly developing into something meaningful. They shared late-night conversations filled with laughter, exchanged stories of their lives, and encouraged each other's ambitions. Jack appreciated Sarah's kindness and understanding. She had a way of bringing light into his life without the baggage of past heartbreak. While he was careful not to rush into anything, he felt hopeful for the future. Each date reminded him that love could be rediscovered, that he was worthy of happiness, and that healing was possible. Jack also made time to reconnect with his family, strengthening bonds that had frayed during his marriage. He attended family gatherings, sharing laughter and memories, and found solace in their support. These connections served as a reminder that he was not alone in this journey. They celebrated his victories, both big and small, helping him to build a new foundation of love and acceptance. Meanwhile, Olivia's journey was equally transformative. After months of therapy, she began to understand the complexities of her emotions and the choices she had made. Confronting her past was painful, but with each session, she unraveled the layers of her own insecurities and fears. The sessions provided a safe space for her to explore the reasons behind her actions, leading to important insights about her behavior and the impact of her choices. Olivia also sought to rebuild her friendships, reaching out to those she had neglected during her marriage. She found comfort in the support of her friends, who were willing to stand by her despite her mistakes. They provided a network of encouragement, helping her to navigate the emotional landscape she found herself in. As she opened up about her experiences, she realized she was not alone in her struggles. Others had faced similar challenges and emerged stronger. Slowly but surely, Olivia began to find joy in the small things again. She started taking dance classes, something she had always wanted to do but had set aside for years. The rhythm and movement became a form of therapy, allowing her to express herself in new ways. It was in these moments that she rediscovered her passion for life, learning to embrace the present rather than dwell on the past. As time went on, Jack and Olivia's paths occasionally intersected, each encounter charged with a mix of nostalgia and awkwardness. The first time they crossed paths in a grocery store, both felt the weight of the shared history. They exchanged polite nods, and Jack's heart raced, but there was also an unspoken understanding that they had both moved on. Neither lingered long in the moment, it was a simple acknowledgement of what once was. Months later, they found themselves at a mutual friends gathering. Jack arrived with Sarah, his hand comfortably resting on her back as they navigated the crowded room. Olivia stood across the space, engaged in conversation with a friend, but her gaze caught Jack's for a brief moment. Their eyes met, and in that fleeting exchange, they recognized the journey each had undertaken since their parting. Jack felt a sense of calm wash over him. The hurt of the past had faded, replaced by a bittersweet understanding. He smiled at Olivia, a genuine acknowledgement of the growth they had both experienced. Olivia returned the smile, her expression reflecting a mix of gratitude and acceptance. There was no animosity between them, just a shared understanding of the lessons learned through their painful experiences. As the night unfolded, Jack and Olivia found themselves seated at opposite ends of the table, their conversations drifting into the background. Jack's laughter with Sarah echoed softly, and Olivia felt a warmth inside her, knowing that they were both on the path to healing. It was a moment of closure, a quiet resolution to a chapter that had been filled with turmoil. They had emerged stronger, more self-aware, and ready to embrace whatever the future held. In the days that followed, Jack felt a renewed sense of clarity. He continued to grow in his relationship with Sarah, appreciating the ease and comfort they shared. They planned weekend trips, explored new restaurants, and even attended cultural events together. Jack realized he was learning to love again, this time with the wisdom gained from his past. Olivia, too, was finding her footing. With newfound confidence, she decided to pursue a long-held dream of starting a small business. She spent weekends crafting a business plan and networking with individuals in her community. It was empowering to take control of her future, and she relished the sense of purpose it brought to her life. Though their journeys had taken them in different directions, Jack and Olivia both understood the importance of the lessons learned through their shared past. They had faced heartbreak, betrayal, and loss, but they had also discovered resilience, hope, and the power of self-forgiveness. As the seasons changed and life continued, they both felt a profound sense of gratitude for the experiences that had shaped them. They carried the memories of their marriage with them, but they no longer defined who they were. Instead, Jack and Olivia had both chosen to focus on the present and the possibilities that lay ahead. In the end, the resolution of their story was not just about the closure of a painful chapter, but rather an opening to new beginnings. Each had learned to embrace life in their own way, discovering that the journey of healing was just as important as the destination. Jack and Olivia were ready to face the future, confident in their ability to create a life filled with purpose, joy, and the promise of what was to come. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.